Right, well, since someone decided it's homage week on the YouTube RPG Brigade, and someone said it'd be good for me to do a same old G-style walk around video, although obviously I'm considerably less fit than him, so I'll probably end up getting quite out of breath while I'm talking. I thought I'd do a bit of a walk around video on my way back from work. Now unfortunately, unlike same old G, I don't have a disused train yard near me. What I do have, however, is this canal, so I'm afraid you'll have to make do with that. I'm not sure how much this you'll be able to hear because it is quite noisy, but hopefully some of it will come through. So for this RPG questions video on the Red Dice Diaries, I thought I'd talk about how much fluff is too much fluff. Now, I don't really like the term fluff, to be perfectly honest, although I'm aware I've just used it a few times in quick succession. And fluff basically is the background stuff, the character stuff, what I consider to be the main crux of any roleplay game. And previously, until about a couple of days ago, I'd have said that you couldn't really have too much fluff, to be perfectly honest. And anyone who knows me will know that I tend to go for minimal or streamlined rule systems, so you'd expect there to be a lot more background material in the games that I go for. However, recently I came across a fantasy game that had seemingly so much fluff crammed into it that it made it very difficult to find any information. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine, if you will, a sort of typical thickness fantasy RPG. However, imagine it with all of the information, including most of the sort of rules chapters, laid out as a series of stories. Now, that sounds very good in practice, and I'm sure if you actually read through it all in sort of one fell swoop as a big story, it's very entertaining. Although I must say the sort of first chapter I read, which seemed to be about a guy just collecting some letters, wasn't particularly entertaining, but I'm sure it's fine if you read through it all. However, when you're in a game, when you're actually playing an RPG, there'll inevitably be moments where you'll need to quickly jump in, grab some information or reference something. So being able to speedily locate information, pull it out and reference it is very important. Now, most of the games I've played in previously have tended to have story at the start of a chapter, then it jumps into the sort of more rules and mechanic-y sort of stuff, and I never really given any sort of thought to where that dividing line should sit and whether it made any real difference to the final game. But having sort of seen the result of a book that tries to lay everything out as a story and intersperse the mechanics amongst it, I think it would make it very hard, even with a decent index as this particular book had, to actually quickly locate anything. And in fact, the few times myself and some friends tried to look anything up, we had to rely on a person who'd already played the game several times to point things out to us because they weren't clear. Now, that's absolutely grand if you've got a week, 2 weeks to sit around and read all that information. If you haven't though, and you want to just quickly get into the game, maybe you've got a bit of a deadline or you want to create a quick character for a game, then having to read through a 100, 200, 300 page story just to find a small bit of information isn't really that great, to be perfectly honest. Now, I don't really like to be too negative in my videos, however, in this case I did find this particular system, it really didn't enthuse me, because straight away I was flung into a group of stories which were referencing things I'd never heard of because they didn't show up until later, or referencing places I'd never heard of, and it was almost like the book sort of put up a wall and went, no, until you've done the requisite amount of coursework, you'll go no further, I'm afraid, John. And to be honest, I had my fill of a massive load of coursework when I was at school, so doing the same in one of my roleplay games doesn't really appeal to me. Don't let that persuade you the time completely against background information. I love background information. I think background information is great. I think there's several games out there that I really enjoy. Jade Punk, Within the Ring of Fire, The World of Darkness, quite a few others, Wild Blue, do a great job of presenting a very interesting background, and I'm sure there's many more games that do it. They present this very interesting background, and they also manage to fit the rules in with a clear delineation of the space between the two of them. Like I said, I'd never thought of it before, but I'd underestimated how useful that actually was. I like a game where I can read the background in my own time, but if during a game or when I'm creating a character I need to quickly look something up, I can easily do that without having to read through scads of background just to pluck out the salient fact. So to pose this question to you, the viewers out there, do you think there is such a thing as too much fluff or too much background? We often hear about there being systems that are too rulesy, and I myself aren't a particular fan of these sort of systems. But is it a case that the needle can swing the other way to the other extreme, and there can be too much background, too much information, or that it's presented in a way that it entirely obscures the rules? I certainly think for myself that I prefer it when there's a balance. I like my background and my rules to be based on each other and to refer to each other, but for there to be a clearness of layout in an RPG, so that if I do want to find something, I can do it quickly. But by the same token, if I want to just chill out, sit in my chair, read a load of background, I can do that as well. So what do you think? Is there such a thing as too much background or too much fluff? Now, I'll apologise for the fact that I've not attempted to actually impersonate SameOG in this video. However, I don't think I could do his sultry tones justice with my accent. However, hopefully I'll score some extra points for saying homage at the start rather than homage, which is how we tend to pronounce it in the UK. If you've got any comments on this question of is there such a thing as too much fluff, please put them in the comments box down below. Or if you've got the time, make a video response as I handily go under a bridge. If you've enjoyed this video, I hope you'll click on like and subscribe. Until I see you next time, take care.